August 1997, Kensington Palace, London. As Princess Diana's personal belongings were being carefully catalogued following her tragic death in Paris, something was discovered hidden in her private jewelry box that shocked even her closest confidants. Wrapped in silk and kept secret for 6 years were handwritten lyrics to a song that had never been recorded, never been heard by the public, never been performed. The song was called Crown of Thorns, and it had been written specifically for Diana by Freddie Mercury just weeks before he died. But the most shocking part wasn't the song itself. It was what Diana had done with those lyrics that proved how deeply they had changed her life. September 15, 1991. While the world knew that Freddie Mercury was battling AIDS, very few people understood how isolated and emotionally devastated the diagnosis had left him. At his beloved garden lodge in Kensington, Freddie had withdrawn from public life, spending his final months surrounded by close friends and fighting a battle that he knew he was going to lose. The flamboyant performer who had commanded stages around the world had become a shadow of his former self, physically weakened but emotionally more perceptive than ever before. What the public didn't know was that during these final months, Freddie had developed an unexpected friendship with one of the most famous women in the world, Princess Diana. Their connection had begun through a mutual friend, Elton John, who had mentioned to Freddie that Diana was struggling with her own sense of imprisonment within royal life and her genuine desire to help AIDS patients despite the social stigma attached to the disease. The initial contact between them had been surprisingly simple. Elton had given Diana Freddie's private phone number during a charity event, suggesting that the two most misunderstood public figures in Britain might find solace in each other's company. Diana had hesitated for weeks before making that first call, uncertain about protocol and worried about media scrutiny. But something about Freddie's situation, his courage in facing such a devastating diagnosis, while maintaining his dignity, compelled her to reach out. Their first phone conversation lasted 3 hours. Diana later told Paul Burrell that talking to Freddie felt like speaking to someone who understood the weight of constant performance in a way that very few people could. Freddie, weakened but still sharp-witted, found Diana's genuine curiosity about his experience refreshing. Unlike the journalists who wanted sensational quotes or the acquaintances who treated him like a tragic figure, Diana spoke to him as an equal, another human being navigating the impossible balance between public duty and private authenticity. Diana had been following Freddie's battle with AIDS through the media, but more importantly, she had been watching how the press and public treated AIDS patients with fear, ignorance, and cruelty. Something about Freddie's dignified silence in the face of such treatment resonated deeply with her own experience of being constantly judged and misunderstood by the very people she was supposed to serve. When Diana made the decision to visit Freddie at Garden Lodge, it wasn't a formal royal engagement or a publicity opportunity. It was a personal choice that required enormous courage and defied every protocol that governed her public life. AIDS was still widely feared and misunderstood in 1991, and for a member of the royal family to visit an AIDS patient in their private home was unprecedented and potentially scandalous. Diana arrived at Garden Lodge on that September afternoon, wearing simple civilian clothes, having insisted on minimal security to keep the visit as private as possible. She had told her protection officers that this was a personal matter and that she wanted to visit Freddie as Diana Spencer, the woman, not as Princess Diana, the public figure. Freddie greeted her at the door himself, something that surprised Diana given what she had heard about his condition. While he was clearly much thinner than the powerhouse performer she remembered from Queen's concerts, his eyes still held the intelligence and warmth that had made him beloved by millions. What struck her immediately was how carefully he had prepared for her visit, dressing elegantly despite his illness, and ensuring that his home reflected the same attention to beauty and detail that had characterized his entire approach to life. They talked for over 3 hours that afternoon, and what began as a formal visit between two public figures quickly became an intimate conversation between two people who understood the peculiar loneliness that comes with being constantly watched, constantly judged, and constantly expected to be something other than who you truly are. Freddie spoke about the isolation of his diagnosis, not just the physical decline, but the way people looked at him differently, the way former friends had distanced themselves, the way his sexuality had been weaponized against him by a press that was more interested in moral judgment than human compassion. Diana listened with the kind of focused attention that very few people had ever given to Freddie's personal struggles, rather than his public persona. But what surprised Freddie most was when Diana began talking about her own sense of imprisonment. She described the constant scrutiny, the impossibility of expressing genuine emotions in public, the way her every gesture was analyzed and criticized, the loneliness of being surrounded by people who saw her as a symbol rather than a human being. She talked about her work with AIDS charities and how the palace consistently tried to limit her involvement because they feared association with the disease might damage the royal family's reputation. It was during this conversation that Diana said something that would inspire Freddie's final creative act. "Sometimes I feel like they've given me a crown made of thorns," she told him, her voice breaking slightly. "Everyone sees the diamonds and the gold, but they don't understand how much it hurts to wear it every single day. I want to help people. I want to be real, but they want me to be perfect and distant and untouchable." Those words, spoken with such raw honesty, touched something deep in Freddie's artistic soul. Here was a woman who had been given everything that society claimed to value: wealth, status, global recognition, but who was suffering in ways that few people could understand. Her pain was different from his, but it came from the same source: the crushing weight of other people's expectations and the impossibility of living authentically when you belong to the public, rather than to yourself. After Diana left that afternoon, Freddie did something he hadn't done in months. He sat down at his piano and began to write. The song that emerged over the next few weeks would be unlike anything he had ever written before. It wasn't meant for stadiums or radio play or commercial success. It was a deeply personal message from one isolated soul to another, a roadmap for finding authenticity in a world that demanded performance. He called it Crown of Thorns, and every line was written specifically for Diana, addressing the struggles she had shared with him and offering the kind of encouragement that only someone who had faced similar challenges could provide. The lyrics spoke about the difference between the crown the world sees and the pain the wearer feels, about finding the courage to be real even when everyone wants you to be perfect, about using your platform to help others even when it costs you personally. But more than just empathy, the song offered hope. It talked about breaking free from other people's expectations, about dancing in the rain even when protocol demanded you stay dry, about being a princess with a human heart who refused to bow to games played by people who had never faced real consequences for their actions. When Freddie finished the song, he knew immediately that it was something special, not because of its commercial potential, but because of its emotional honesty. This wasn't Freddie Mercury, the performer, writing for his audience. This was Farouk Bulsara, the man writing to Diana Spencer, the woman, sharing the wisdom he had gained from years of trying to balance authenticity with public expectation. 3 weeks later, Diana returned to Garden Lodge. This time, Freddie was noticeably weaker, and Diana could see that their time together was becoming limited. After another long conversation about life, loss, and the courage required to live authentically in the public eye, Freddie presented Diana with something that would change her life forever. He handed her a folder containing the handwritten lyrics to Crown of Thorns, each word carefully penned in his distinctive handwriting. "This is for you," he told her, his voice quiet but intense. "Not for Princess Diana, but for the real you, the one they don't let the world see. I want you to have this as a reminder that someone sees you for who you really are, not what they need you to be." Diana read the lyrics in silence, and as she absorbed each line, tears began streaming down her face. No one had ever understood her experience so completely, so accurately, so compassionately. The song captured not just her pain, but her potential, not just her struggles, but her strength. It was as if Freddie had looked directly into her soul and written down everything she had never been able to express about her own life. "They gave you a crown made of diamonds and gold, but forgot to mention the thorns you'd hold," the song began. "Every smile for the cameras, every wave to the crowd, when inside you're screaming but can't be loud." The chorus offered both validation and encouragement. "Break free from the throne room. Dance in the rain. A princess with a human heart doesn't bow to their game. Let them see you bleeding. Let them see you real. The people need a leader who knows how pain feels. But it was the bridge that affected Diana most deeply. Take off the tiara when the day is done. Remember, you're a daughter, sister, woman before you're anyone's chosen one. Your scars are your wisdom. Your tears are your crown. The realist royalty lifts people up instead of looking down. When Diana finished reading, she looked up at Freddie with an expression of gratitude and understanding that transcended words. "How did you know?" she whispered. "How did you see so clearly what I couldn't even explain to myself?" Freddie smiled, the same enigmatic expression that had captivated audiences for decades. "Because I've spent my whole life wearing masks and performing for people who thought they knew me," he replied. "The only difference between us is that your mask is made of diamonds and mine was made of sequins. But underneath, we're both just trying to figure out how to be human while the whole world is watching." Diana made a promise that day that she would keep for the rest of her life. She told Freddie that she would treasure the song always, that she would keep it private as he requested, but that she would live every word of it. She would use his lyrics as a guide for how to be authentically herself while still fulfilling her royal duties. The impact of Freddie's gift became apparent almost immediately. In the months following their meeting, Diana's approach to her charitable work became noticeably more hands-on, more emotionally engaged, more willing to challenge protocol when it conflicted with genuine human need. Her work with AIDS patients became more prominent and more personal, directly inspired by her conversations with Freddie and her commitment to living the truth expressed in his lyrics. When she held the hand of an AIDS patient during a hospital visit, she was remembering Freddie's words about letting people see her humanity. When she spoke publicly about the need for compassion rather than judgment toward AIDS sufferers, she was channeling the courage that Freddie's friendship had given her. When she hugged children with HIV, defying medical advisors who still believed the disease could be transmitted through casual contact, she was living the line from his song about being a princess with a human heart who doesn't bow to their game. Diana's work took on an emotional authenticity that surprised even her closest advisors. She began speaking more openly about her own struggles with depression and bulimia, using her personal pain to connect with others who were suffering. She started challenging royal protocol more directly when it interfered with her ability to provide genuine comfort to people in need. But throughout all of these changes, Diana never shared the source of her newfound courage with anyone. The lyrics remained hidden in her jewelry box at Kensington Palace, wrapped in silk and kept as private as Freddie had requested. She would read them before difficult public appearances, drawing strength from Freddie's words about the difference between performing and being real. The friendship between Diana and Freddie continued until his death on November 24, 1991. Their final conversation, conducted by phone just days before Freddie died, was about the legacy they both hoped to leave. Freddie told Diana that he was proud of how she was using her platform to help others, and Diana told Freddie that his courage in facing his illness with dignity had inspired her to be braver in facing her own challenges. During that final call, Freddie's voice was barely above a whisper, but his message was crystal clear. "Promise me something, darling," he said, using the term of endearment he had adopted for her months earlier. "Promise me you won't let them make you smaller. The world needs someone who dares to be real." Diana, fighting back tears, promised him that she would continue to break protocol whenever human compassion demanded it. Freddie also made a confession during that final conversation that would haunt Diana for years. He told her that writing Crown of Thorns had given him more satisfaction than any of Queen's biggest hits because it had been created purely from love, without any consideration for commercial success or public approval. "That's what real art is," he whispered, "creating something that helps another person feel less alone in the world." When Freddie died on November 24, 1991, Diana attended his funeral service, one of the few public figures who risked association with an AIDS victim during a time when such association could damage careers and reputations. Her presence was widely noted by the media, but they had no idea of the deep friendship that had existed between the rock star and the princess. For 6 years, Diana carried Freddie's lyrics with her as a constant reminder of the person she wanted to be versus the person others expected her to be. The song became her private manifesto, her guide for navigating the impossible balance between royal duty and human authenticity. In August 1997, when Princess Diana died in Paris, the world lost not just a beloved public figure, but a woman who had been quietly revolutionizing what it meant to be royal in the modern world. Her approach to charity work, her willingness to show vulnerability, her insistence on treating all people with dignity, all of these qualities had been influenced by her friendship with Freddie Mercury and the wisdom contained in the song he had written specifically for her. When Diana's personal belongings were cataloged after her death, Paul Burrell, her trusted butler and friend, discovered the carefully preserved lyrics hidden in her jewelry box. As he read through the handwritten words, he began to understand the source of many of the changes he had witnessed in Diana's approach to her public life over the previous 6 years. The discovery of Crown of Thorns provided insight into Diana's transformation from a somewhat conventional royal figure into someone who challenged expectations and used her platform to advocate for marginalized people. Every line of the song reflected choices Diana had made in her public life, from her work with AIDS patients to her willingness to show emotional vulnerability in public. The song also revealed something beautiful about Freddie Mercury's final months. While the public saw only his physical decline and eventual death, the lyrics to Crown of Thorns showed that he had used his final creative energy not for commercial purposes, but to provide guidance and encouragement to someone else who was struggling. His last song was an act of pure friendship and compassion. Today, the story of Freddie Mercury and Princess Diana's friendship serves as a reminder that some of the most meaningful connections happen between people who understand each other's unique struggles. Two people who seemed to live in completely different worlds found common ground in their shared experience of being constantly watched, constantly judged, and constantly expected to be symbols rather than human beings. Freddie Mercury's final gift to Princess Diana wasn't just a song. It was permission to be real in a world that demanded perfection, courage to help others, even when it challenged convention, and the understanding that the most beautiful crowns are often the ones that no one else can see. Diana kept that gift secret until she died, but she lived it every day, proving that the most powerful influences are often the ones that remain hidden, working quietly to transform hearts and change the world, one authentic moment at a time.